Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all of you. Again, I'm Bruce Broussard, Oregon Voters Digest, and by George, this is the holiday season that's upon us, and guess what? It's right around the corner, but we are festive right now. But guess what? We've got an election coming up. We got some major elections, and we got major issues that are on the table. I mean, we got international issues. We've got country issues. We got all kinds of things. But in all due respect, the focus during this election period, in most cases, primarily, will be on our local issues here in the state of Oregon. Okay, that's where we're going to be. And I just want to make sure you understand that. So for the next two shows, right before the holidays begin, we're just going to have some we're going to basically kind of give you a feel for what in general about what we're looking at as far as the issues are concerned, even from a national, international, whatever. I have a gentleman that's with me right here now. He's very familiar with the state of Oregon, but also he's very familiar with national issues across the board. He's been all over the place. And talking about this young man named Tim Lussier.
There we go.
He's Creole too, but I didn't. Il connaît causer un petit peu. Tu connais causer?
Yeah, I only speak English and
He got me on that.
A little Hawaiian too.
You like that? I like it. Anyway,
thank you, Bruce.
We can be a little loose right now because, in all due respect, Tim has been around, and we're going to take advantage of that fact. But the fact he's a young man and he knows about the business of what the issues are, and he also represents. He's been doing a lot of this business for a number of years in regards to campaigning and for other individuals and sort of taking them through the jungle and all that kind of good stuff. But welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate
Bruce.
that very much. Okay, good.
Thanks so much.
Well, what we're going to do again, like I say, for the first half hour, we're going to talk with Tim a little bit, kind of educate you, if you will, about if you're interested in being a candidate. It's going to give you some ideas of. We're going to talk about what you need to do and sort of that path. And then once you get into the business, then we're going to talk about that, and then maybe kind of give you a feel about where those issues are all about and how do you pick that and how you interview. Okay? Sounds good? Okay. And then the second half hour, is my understanding we may have a candidate here. We may have a candidate here, and we're going to give this person an opportunity to communicate and articulate himself and see whether or not he passes the muster.
Oh, he's going to pass, and we're going to have some great announcements with him, and it's going to be an exciting show.
Sounds good.
We're going to take back Oregon.
Sounds good. Oh, I like that.
People,
I like it.
for the voters, for the taxpayers.
Sounds like my brand.
That's right.
I like it, Tim. Well, Tim, let's just talk about this. Again, like I said, from a national perspective, a lot of people don't look at the CNNs and the Foxes and all this, that, and the other.
Too busy working.
I read the newspaper. Too busy trying to make a living.
Yep.
You got to eat.
Yep.
You got to eat. Kind of routine. But unfortunately, that eating aspect of it is that politics get right into the mix of it all. So we got to get the right leadership, if you will. Right. Because it's about taxes and paying the rent. That's
limited accountable local government. Right. That's what we all want.
And it's the rent. You know what I mean? See, a lot of times people don't say, they say taxes, but I say rent. Everybody has to pay their rent. You're over 21, you got to pay rent. And you'll be doing that until, 65, 75?
You got to be paying something.
That's right. And depending upon how hard you work, will be kind of what your lifestyle is going to be.
Yeah.
But whether you've got $20 in the bank or $20 million in the bank, you still get there, and we're going to all be going to the man. You can't take it with you, right? Am I right, Tim?
That's right.
Okay, good. Well, tell us just give us a little overview about what do you think from a national perspective. I know, we got the, I'm going to throw something out on the table, and you'll run with it from that point on. We still have a presidential election going on right now between our incumbent president, who's on now, and that's President Trump, and CNN. I mean, those are the two pieces.
Freedom of the press, right?
You got the others, we got Fox and you got others, but the fact of the matter is that those are the ones you see every day. I mean, they're constantly doing that election piece, and then at the same time, trying to keep the doors open, right, of this country, and dealing with all this international stuff and whatever. It's a tough job. What's wrong?
Well, thanks for having me, Bruce. I mean, as a native Oregonian, and we were just joking about my last name, Lussier.
Lussier.
Etienne Lussier was the first Western farmer here in Oregon, and he voted in the Shampooey Compromise with one other Frenchman in a 50-48 vote to make Oregon a U.S. territory, not a French or a British colony. And so I'm very proud of my ancestry. I didn't choose it, obviously. None of us did. And then obviously we just joked about, I have a little bit of Cherokee heritage, just a little small percent from my mom's father.
Those features. I like those features.
Thank you. I came home from college a couple years ago, post Hawaii, lived there about 7 years, and I just feel like we lost our state here in Oregon. This one party rule in Salem and Portlandia controlling everything, it's not working. Weird isn't working. And so, on the national issues, the president, as you pointed out, is kind of taking the federal system in a different direction, which the progressives don't understand, because they're always trying to expand the role of government and expand the government so that it's in your life. I consider myself a Republican or a conservative, but fiscally conservative and socially libertarian. The government shouldn't take half your money or take all the money upon your death, but they also shouldn't regulate what you do in your bedroom between two consenting adults. And I think that's kind of the Oregon way, that kind of Oregon lifestyle. And so it's great to reconnect with you, Bruce, earlier this year, and us to kind of start talking about the issues that are facing here in Oregon. And it just seems like there's two things going on. There's the taxpayers and those people that are trying to keep their economy going, in Oregon City and in rural Oregon. And then you have the Salem bureaucrats who are just trying to come and not even pay down the $21 billion in PERS debt. Kate Brown is trying to privatize the freeways and toll our paid-for federal highways and try to add a gross receipts tax and add a corporate sales tax and a regular sales tax. And so it seems like the Oregon government, Salem, the Portlandian style government, they've lost their mind. And so I feel like in 2017 going into 2018 and your show, you bring diverse parties together. This isn't Republicans, this isn't Democrats.
But we'll have another on the team. We'll get them both.
And so I think today, moving forward in Oregon, there seems kind of a resistance to the resistors. And so you talked about the federal issues. President Trump is trying to, fix the tax code, reduce rates for everyone. Well, Senator Merkley decries Wolf and says that, they're trying to kill kids and babies and all these things. It doesn't make sense. And they're in the minority. The Oregon delegation is all Democratic. They didn't get any votes on the tax reform bill. And so we have lame ducks federally. We have Oregon, Salem, and Portlandian controlling the rest of Oregon, locking up our lands from logging and all these other things. And it just seems like we've lost our way of life. And so today, Bruce, I really appreciate exploring kind of some of these issues with you, but it's just so frustrating to be a young person and not own land and to not have anything before us. We millennials have to do and create our own opportunity. And so I'm just so frustrated, and I so respect you for serving your country as a Marine, like my grandfather who stormed Iwo Jima and took a bayonet to the leg. And I don't think we can thank our veterans well enough. So
thank you, Tim.
I'll stop talking now and start by saying thank you for your service. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate that, brother. Let's talk about this. Well, good. Well, let's get down. What about the governor's race? I mean, I know that's kind of brewing up. Can you share us a little light about the governor's race? Got the incumbent. You got Kate Brown.
Got Kate Brown
and then
here.
you got several people that are running on the conservative side, the R side. I think we had Bruce Cuff here the other day. And then you got Bueller, right? You got Bueller and whatever. And
New Bueller. Let's look at the race.
And you got Sam.
You got that guy too. New Bueller's raised $2 million. I think that's a measurable war chest. Kate Brown's raised $2 million too. It's not that money buys politics, but that shows you that the small and middle class donors believe in New Bueller because they're sending him contributions to say that the Salem status quo, the one party rule in Salem, is not working. Why is that? Well, Kate Brown is continuing to raise taxes on hardworking people. She's trying to toll our federal freeways from I-5 and 205 from Wilsonville to the Columbia River. Why? We paid for those federal highways. Well, they've ran out of ideas, it seems like, and so this is the last thing that they're doing. So I did see some polling last week at the executive club that you and I were at, and it looks like she's vulnerable. She's below 50%. Whether or not the National Republican Governors Association comes into Oregon. My first paid campaign was 2006 when I was working for Ron Saxton. I remember Governor Romney, who I ended up working for in 2012, my first job out of college, brought in $1 million check to support Ron Ron Saxton, who was taking on Governor Kulongoski at that point.
He was a former school board member here. He was chairman of Portland Public Schools, right?
And a Marine, right?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yes, sir.
So, we do see this. Sometimes, though, the voters in Oregon, there's about 30-something percentage are Democrat, there's about 30-something percentage are Republican, and there's the rest are basically independent or non-affiliated voters, not necessarily members of the Independent Party of Oregon. Right. And so, I feel like there's this groundswell of people that are just saying, what happened to this state? The Salem majority is not working. The status quo of raise taxes on anything. If it moves, tax it. They just added a sales tax on cars. 0.5% sales tax. Why? To pay for electric vehicles, which I have a Tesla car reservation, the new Model 3, so I would benefit from that. But I don't think we need a new sales tax to pay for cars to
many folks
help
can't afford them.
And we can't even pay for them.
Right.
Right now, people are struggling paycheck to paycheck, and we're driving $100 cars, which require a $1,000 bill to replace the oil engine, which fails. And so it just seems like there's this disconnect in Salem and then the real world where we're from, where we were raised with folks that are trying to, if you play by the rules, it seems like you should have a fair shot at life. And unfortunately, we're being nickel and dimed by these bureaucrats because they want to just keep funding the failed status quo. And yet the pension of $21 billion in Oregon, it's never going to be funded. And so what? We, the next generation and our kids beyond that, have to pay for that debt.
Let the layperson know about that $21 billion, if you will, from the PERS. How many folks are we looking at in that particular deal? Basically, this is the retirement stuff that we have to pay, right?
Yeah, the public employee retirement system.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
They changed the tiers on what you can opt in. I mean, nobody should be against government employees. They're hardworking people. They're trying to help people at the front lines of the DMV and social services. And I mean, talk about the most thankless jobs. Our public health professionals, the folks that are working with the veterans, our hospital, our Veterans Administration. I mean, these are the frontline workers. But it's the system. It's the bureaucrats. It's the government that designed the pension, and they design it unsustainably. So it's just much like Social Security that we have to pay into. And my generation's never going to see that because it's unsustainable. I don't want to call it a Ponzi scheme, but that's what it is. So we're going to keep paying into it and honor our veterans and honor.
I'll put it in a situation where he says one's risk-free and one is risk, right, and none, right? You got me?
And so you have PERS, which is 20 billion, 21 billion is I believe the new number, and openly, Kay Brown has a blue ribbon task force that's looking at what to do with that. What is her couple ideas? It's privatizing the university system. It's privatizing the lottery commission. It's privatizing the alcohol commission. You can sell off all these state programs, but it's leadership that's going to fix this problem. And that's what's so frustrating is that you and me, the taxpayer, or if you own a home or if you actually pay
the owner
income
for that
tax,
matter, because we're paying the bills, right?
That's right. And yet it just continues to grow. So it's unfortunate that we have we have the fifth worst traffic according to the Waze USA Today poll. And yet our highways aren't getting fixed any better.
Well, right here in this area.
right here in Portlandia. We're in downtown Portland. The worst. And yet the government doesn't, put that money towards expanding the freeways because that's the European style of, let's not fix the roads, let's just put in a light rail. And you can't use the gas tax revenue to, to do other things other than build roads. But they're not building more roads. They're against new roads. And so it's just very frustrating too.
Well, the other thing about this state is a balanced budget type deal. So meaning that whatever monies you pick up for that 1 year, you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, you can, and then you've got X number of bills to be paying because that's paid, and government, it's and all the other stuff. But if let's say for instance, if you got $100 and you pick up $100 and you got $150 worth of bills, then guess what happened? People get all ratty about the other $50 as opposed to saying, okay, fine, okay, you've gone over the $50 now. Can't we all get together and see where we can kind of balance it, if you will, across the board, meaning everybody can eat. But it doesn't work that way.
And we have record revenues, and yet they just keep spending more.
Exactly.
They spend, and conservatives or Republicans in the House or in the minority. They introduce bills to fund education first, so that way we can fund our K through 12 and our community colleges, which I'm a product of both public schools. And yet the majority party won't allow that because they would rather hold on to that money and figure out how to put that towards special interests instead of funding education first. And they want to block school choice. They want to block charter schools. They don't want to allow online charter schools. Why? Because they listen to their donors. Their donors are often unions and folks that don't want anything touched. The biggest employer, or the biggest union contributor, the biggest contributor, I should say, in politics in California is the prison unions because they want to keep criminalizing everyday life so that they can have overtime and more hiring in the prison system. And when you think about those type of things, and you want to build more prisons with that, when you think about that kind of systematic control of our life, it's tragic. Actually, during the Ron Saxon 06 race, I remember him saying that he was told by a sheriff that they plan on how many prisons that they need based on third grade reading scores. Because if you have a decrease in third grade success, you know in future years when they graduate high school or drop out in many instances, you're going to have more people in jail and incarcerated. And when I heard that, that was just tragic. And so, I went on to community college and tried to serve our students. And
what's your feel about that what you just said now to date? Do you see any change, or are we going to have some major impact in terms of leadership to change that?
On the education,
is it still going up that way from the standpoint of?
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember, going to community college, and that's where I got my shot. And, I remember the statistics that, it was for every 100 students that were freshmen in high school, only 60 would make it to graduation. Most of my older siblings dropped out of high school. And when I saw that as the youngest, I realized I needed to commit my life to succeeding and trying to learn from their mistakes in spite of my broken family growing up. And then, about half of those that do graduate high school end up going on to community college or some type of college. And then about half of those actually continue after 2 or 4 years, and so you have kind of the law of numbers. But we have one of the worst high school graduation rates in the nation, and yet we have record per student enrollment. And so if you ask about specifics, I remember Julie Parrish, state representative from my hometown of West Lynn. She showed up on the House floor to pass a school choice bill that allowed, if you have extra room in West Lynn High School, let's say, you could have kids from Oregon City or Canby come across the river and attend that school because there's extra seats, and the money would follow them. But what happened when the Democratic majority came to power again after the 30-30 split where they had to share power? They stopped that. They capped enrollment for online charter schools like Jeff Krupp, our friend, runs. And so you have visible examples of, I would call it corruption, but of examples of majority rule and one-party rule in our state that's literally hurting people. And conservatives are told all the time that we're the party of people that are hurting the young and the vulnerable. But we want limited, accountable local government, and yet we don't get that. We don't get that in Oregon. We don't get that in federally. We don't get that in most states. And so that's what we continue to fight for. And so Julie Parrish, I do consider today the leader of the opposition in Salem, and she's standing up to a new health care tax, which is coming in January.
All the vets. I understand that they tried to cut into the vets situation not too long ago, because she was the one that basically led the charge, if you will, to make sure that the state was very much involved with vets.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you look at the veterans on a federal level. I mean, you were kind of touched on that earlier. The conservatives for a few years. I worked for a man named Charles DeJoux, who was elected to Congress in 2010 from Hawaii. And he supported a bill that if you're a veteran, you can take your benefits and go to a private hospital. Makes sense, but of course that was blocked by one party in Washington, D.C. and not allowed in Oregon. Why, if you're a veteran, if you serve your country, if you give all in many instances, like your fellow soldiers and airmen and Marines, why shouldn't we take care of you if you honorably serve and you come home? You should be able to use your benefits anywhere, and yet the corrupt status quo, locally and federally, aren't supporting real people that need this, that need real changes. And so it's just disappointing, but I feel like there's hope, because I feel like people are seeing through and demanding accountable government and demanding changes that are people first, that are Americans first, that are centered around the taxpayers and the hardworking job creators, and so
So getting back to the crop of folks who are running for governor, if you will. Again, like I said, we talked about crop. I mean, we were talking about Jeff. Not Jeff, but Bruce Cuff.
You had him on.
Yeah, I had him on. He's, in all due respect, he's kind of like a bread and potato kind of a guy. You know what I mean? Because he gets out.
Just a humble guy working the people. That's where it starts.
He's a realtor, so he's not going to hurt too bad. Saying, at least he's meeting potential listeners and this, that, and the other.
Well, it's hard to knock off an incumbent. Kay Brown statistically is a 90% likely re-election rate. That's what the national re-election rate is for incumbent. And I was student body president at Clackamas Community College many years ago. ago, in 07, 08, Kate Brown came to my campus. She came to my student government office, and she sat down with my students. She, of course, was running for, I think, for treasurer or secretary of state at that time. So, but she was a state senator, I think, from, you know, a local district as well. Yes. So, you know, we've known, you know, Governor Kate Brown over the years, and her platform is very consistent about what she supports. Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, the Democratic majority here in Oregon will support any Democrat that's the nominee. And so she was blessed after the Kitzhaber debacle and talk about corruption with
that. And she lives in the Portland metropolitan area, you know that.
And she's supporting her base. She's supporting, you know, more, you know, pension, you know, all that, and she's supporting carbon taxes in February unless this healthcare tax gets voted down, which I think Julie Parrish is successfully articulating.
What is that carbon tax to a certain degree? What are we talking about?
Well, it's kind of a libertarian idea in that, you know, you should be able to cap the amount of big polluters that they put out in the environment. I mean, you know, if I'm driving a Tesla next year, I'm really excited that I'll be driving an American-made car that's not polluting. Of course, you know, where does our energy come from? Well, a lot, you know, the small percentage comes from coal here in the Northwest on our grid. But, you know, it's the idea that if you have carbon polluting big companies here in Oregon, then you can cap the amount that they can pollute in the environment, and then you can tax that, and then you can kind of have credits. So if you're, you know, lowering your amount, then you can sell the credits to other folks. And so, you know, to conservatives and people that question government getting too close, you know, and with Oregon's history of misdeeds, you know, I think it's nefarious yet again. It's just an attempt to take money out of the pockets of businesses and put it in maybe PERS retirement debt or whatever they're going to end up doing. But, you know, Oregon, according to EPA, has the 4th worst air quality out of 3,000 U.S. counties, according to a study that I read.
That's a major problem.
4th worst
in the state. In the Portland area.
4th worst out of 3,000. And so, you know, some of that apparently is because of West Hills blocks, you know, air, you know, coming in and out. Right. But that's not good, and that means, you know, more cancer deaths from diesel trucks or bullseye, you know, blowing glass emissions. And so, you know, what are we doing to take care of our neighbors? I mean, that's a very important question, and yet we're not getting that leadership. So it's frustrating. But it looks like the legislature is going to be meeting yet again and doing this carbon tax unless they lose this healthcare tax that Julie Parrish called them out on.
So again, the other side is they're still short of money. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're short of money.
You're going to have to go back to those entities that are already funded, and they've pretty well given them the increase, and they start thinking about, well, what do we need and what don't we need, right? Am I right? Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think people, you know, just want a fair, you know, tax system. They want fair regulation. They want, you know, be able to play by the rules. And, you know, I think time and time again we see, you know, those aren't happening. You know, they can't build a Columbia River crossing bridge. They spent $300 million to just study that, and we got no bridge.
That's insulting.
Spent $100 million on Cover Oregon, a website that didn't work. You know, an extension of Obamacare that didn't work. And so, you know, you look at government and you just say, what are you guys doing with our money, our hardworking money? And so there's few people that stand up. You know, we're not anti-government, we're for good government. And so it's just continuing.
Well, you know, Tim, what's interesting when you just made that point about the whole issue of government, a lot of times people, when we get in this arena of talking about the election and trying to find the leadership and aspect of it, they don't realize the power that they have.
Yeah.
Because it's what we have is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. They're the employers, right? You got me? And they're trying to pick employees, if you will, to do a darn good job. And a lot of times people don't understand that. You know, they just thinking, well, gee whiz. And then a lot of times what happens is if you don't pick the right leadership, they pretty well say, well, we're in charge.
Yeah.
It all stops here.
Right.
And blame it that way. Right. But no, we are in charge. It's the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we're looking for employees who's going to give us a good day's work.
And they're trying to, our Oregon, which is a union-funded organization that's very progressive, and they're trying to be progressive by taxing businesses and trying to come up with another Measure 97 to have a sales tax on all of us, and it doesn't make sense. But they're trying to do that because they're out of money for the retirement pensions, and so they're next trying to reduce the amount of the 3/5 majority, which is what's required constitutionally to raise taxes. They almost have a supermajority in the Senate and the House, they being the Democratic majority that already controls Salem. And so they're trying to reduce the constitutional requirement to raise our taxes and to pass legislation without the minority.
Okay. Okay.
It's troubling.
Okay. Tell me this: what do you hear down in Salem way about this sanctuary city stuff? I mean, since the San Francisco situation, this young lady got shot by an undocumented. Yeah, Kate Steinle. What have you heard about it from an Oregon standpoint? Have you heard anything?
Well, I mean, we know the case right here with I think it's Sergio. I forget his last name.
Right over here, right in Portland.
The instance of an undocumented immigrant, illegal alien, whatever we want to call him. I'm a citizen. I know you are.
Right.
You know, we think citizens first is a reasonable measure. I'm not a hater. I have friends from all persuasions and backgrounds. Living in Hawaii for 7 years, I met people from all around the world, immigrants and visitors and people that had visas and people that stayed because they were able to get jobs and we allowed them to stay. But this issue of the Democratic majority and their base saying, no, we're going to support illegal immigration. We're going to support the illegals that are here, especially the criminal aliens. The Portland government allowed an illegal alien to be let out. After 19 times he was arrested and deported. He was removed from the country from news reports 19 times. And on the 19th time, he went out and raped and kidnapped 2 women before he was caught again. And so I think Portland government has blood on their hands. And yet they do this because they're bleeding heart liberals. They feel with their emotion that they want to protect these people. But they're hurting us Oregonians. They're hurting us citizens. They're hurting us that played by the rules. There's 1 million people that are allowed to come to the United States every year legally and become citizens. And I believe that's more than anywhere else in the world. And yet the friends that I know that waited in line and got their citizenship and got their green card legally, and yet we allow some of these people to just skip the line, and then you allow them to be released out the back door of a courtroom, which is another instance separate than this instance. And then you have the Kate Steinle issue where he was known and yet hidden from the federal agents because they don't like Trump. I mean, it was President Obama that actually had record deportations of undocumented workers in his later years. And yet it's defying the Trump administration because you don't like ICE, that you allow people like that are criminal aliens, convicted criminals, not just an undocumented worker, not a DACA person who's a young person that was brought here without, to no fault of their own. And so, people, though, polling-wise say, oh yeah, I like sanctuary because I think it's right. I think we should protect my Hispanic friends who maybe they think are undocumented and are on the path to citizenship or something like that. But I think yet again that is an issue that the voters don't realize, and yet all of a sudden you have a person that's let out here in Multnomah County because that's the policy to hide anybody from federal ICE agents. And when ICE agents come through the front door, you let the undocumented worker or immigrant out the back door, and then they do something because they're in the dark web, they're in the around our neighborhoods hurting people sometimes. So that is just an incredible odd issue.
But I think I tell you what, that issue is going to be, it's on the table now. A petition is out there right now.
Ballot measure.
On the ballot measure is going to be out there now. And in all due respect, what happens a lot of times, until it affects your pocketbook, and I think that's the name of the key. The key. People now is hitting more people in the pocketbook because they are losing jobs.
Well, and here in Oregon, there's a federal law called Real ID, and Oregon is one of the states that has had a waiver, which has allowed us to continue to have driver's licenses that aren't backed by some type of identification that can't be tricked. But you have the Oregon government, which Julie Parrish and Secretary of State Dennis Richardson literally put Medicaid patients with an illegal Social Security number from a person from another state. I mean, it is just so odd what's going on with this resist movement and just this weird corruption in Salem, because they just are trying to just push their issues forward and just try to keep their slush funds going, and it's just mind-blowing. But what happens when you can't use your driver's license to go to the TSA? You're going to need a federal passport.
Yes. Oh, it is. I mean, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. You're going to be here. You're part of the team. We're going to be doing some interviews with a lot of candidates, a lot of folks who are potentially leaders, and we'll be right here to talk about this. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a short break. I think we've got a candidate we're going to just start off with.
Bring him out.
And that'll be great. Can we do that way? We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
We're back. Now, here it go. We're starting right off with, again, like I said, we had Bruce Cuff here, a gubernatorial candidate the other day, and so now we're just going to kind of get to some here down in the community, so to speak, and we just happen to have someone just right in just in a neighboring county, if you will, city, and we're talking about the Oregon City area comes in, right? Oregon City. Josh Hill. How you doing, Josh?
Doing well.
You're looking great, man.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me, but I am a bounty hunter for the Marine Corps, and I might just go on and just take you up right now. But we need you here.
That's right.
We need you here, Josh. You look good.
Oregon does.
And so we had a little chat before you got on, and I mean, it's just awesome. You've got some heck of a credentials and whatever. So what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of sit down and give you the opportunity to let the viewing public know who you are. Why don't you start off that way? Tell them who you are.
Well, Bruce, Josh Hill, grew up on the west side, Beaverton area, went to Westview High School. First off, when I graduated, went to the Air Force Academy. Grandparents got sick. My World War II veteran grandfather got sick. Ended up transferring back home to Linfield College in order to help them out, have a better kind of athletic, academic situation. Very blessed there, had an awesome academic background there. But really felt my calling to really come out, help my community, help people like my grandfather who struggled with cancer, illnesses, troubles with the VA, services that way. But I really felt like it was time for me, somebody that was a young person that has disadvantages, to really speak out and help other people do so.
And what district? You know,
House District 40.
House District 40, right?
Yep. Oregon City, Gladstone.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave us sort of a reason why you're going to be doing this piece of activity. So, any other specific reasons, and what about the issues in your particular district?
Definitely. Well, Bruce moved to Oregon City about just under 2 years ago.
Okay.
And one of the echoing things I keep hearing is people are losing hope. People are getting, discouraged by what's going on in the state of Oregon. And being who I am, overcoming what I've overcame, I feel I have an opportunity to really help these people overcome some of these challenges.
That's a major issue that we were just chatting. Tim and I, we were talking a little bit about this before you came on, and things like what are the other major issues that's impacting everybody knows. We were talking about the whole issue of homelessness. It's all over the place, aspect of it. And homelessness, that's a big. Senior citizens, because we're talking about the baby boomers, and all due respect, now the baby boomers, they're kids, but they're trying to retire, and they're looking at some tough time because, in all due respect, they've had kids. We kind of gotten into a service industry kind of a deal, and a lot of folks not going to have any work. So we need jobs here. You got me? I'm sure you've been thinking about, you've given me the shake. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, right in my district, you've heard of Blue Heron. The Westland paper mill just announced they're closing.
Oh, wow.
We're feeling it. There's people in my district that are feeling that impact and are really looking, like I said, what's next? Where can I look for optimism? Where can I look for that security? Illness, retirement. These issues, kids going to school. These are all issues that you and me, we face every day.
Yeah,
and I think the state of Oregon, there needs to be some better support there. There needs to be some accountability. So.
What do you think in terms of, okay, are you looking at stopping the closure, or are you thinking about what other industry, going out and finding another industry to replace that to keep those jobs?
Well, I think, we can look at situations, Tim has talked to me briefly, look at Amazon. Oregon has to be a place where we can invite smaller businesses that can thrive. I work in the packaging industry, and a lot of our customers are your mom and pop, kombuchas, teas, coffee shops. They're feeling it. It's tough, to grow, to succeed in the state of Oregon with these sales tax restrictions that are being brought up and, I guess flirted around with, but they're hurting small companies. And I think these companies aren't wanting to come to Oregon to really thrive. So what are we going to do to kind of attract these people to come back? And I think that's a big issue in my district, really moving forward.
Now, what about young people? You just pretty well just you were still in that educational system aspect of it. And, for some strange reason, it said that opioid, pills and drugs and marijuana was kind of like an issue. Did you notice that at that point in time? And is it still here? And then what would be your way of dealing with those issues? Most
definitely. Growing up in the West Side, going to Linfield College, drug use is huge. It's affecting a lot of our youth, our schools, and it's really hurting opportunities for kids moving forward. For me, I think it really starts in the education system. We're seeing here a thriving economy and a failing education system. These kids aren't getting the support, the education, the infrastructure they really need to make positive choices in the community. And I think for us, as individuals, people one day that want to have kids, I think we need to focus on that issue. Where are these dollars going? I mean, we've never spent more money in the state of Oregon than we have now on individual kids. So where's it going? I think that's a big question moving forward. This upcoming election needs to be answered.
Another area that we, for instance, like a millennium grandpa like I am, there's a concern about family image now. You know what I mean? It's as if to say people are constantly depending and talking to, well, what about representative for the young folks? Getting the male image in there, because a lot of the young male, and we don't have a draft system for the military. That, to me, that was a job, if you will, but we don't do that anymore. It was during my particular time, so I benefited that way, but then naturally there's several wars out there. I participated. But still today, the whole issue of the family is being threatened. We got a lot of things that are on the sidelines that tends to try to separate the family. And actually, people have their own. We all have the opportunity to talk to what our issues and our concerns. But however they get that training aspect, the family is the base for all of us, for that matter. But we don't have, for some strange reason, I'll put it on us. I'll put it on the older folks and whatever. Maybe not the millennium, but at least we're talking about it. But it's not just a person got here. It was not just by chance. And that family element is what got me here today, and like Tim here for that matter. But we got a problem. So what do you think about that? I know it's education, but the family issue.
Definitely. I've got a very unique background. I was raised by my grandparents, so an older generation kind of upbringing. But really, I think, Bruce, what we're losing is the service-oriented aspect of our youth. I mean, that's how I was raised. Help the guy next door, help your brother and sister. Really do whatever you can, no matter what it takes. And I think we're moving away from that as we're getting more, connected technology-wise, and moving away from kind of only service ourselves. But we need to get back to helping each other, being there for each other no matter what it takes. And I think if we can somehow embody that in our education system, where we can really crack back on those morals, I think we're going to be a better kind of state moving forward, and I'm really concerned about that. I am.
Well, the model that you bring to the table, and I've had some time to speak to you, boy, it's really needed, because a lot of times, like you're saying, a lot of folks are looking at it, a lot of the millenniums are looking at it and saying, these old folks. But these are parents, moms and dads and aunts and this, that, and the other, and they need that, because that's exactly that's the foundation of success, for that matter.
Wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom. See, otherwise you end up with nothing. But with your background, that's the kind of model we need, if you will, because you'll be able to express yourself when you deal with the young folks. You don't want to down them, because that's the next round that's coming up.
That's right.
In order for me to retire. And then they've got to be thinking in terms of progression on the end of it. And we've sort of lost that. And so that's why it's such a pleasure and an honor to have someone like yourself, and you're thinking and how you're feeling about that. And you don't scare if you will, you don't scare the matured person like myself. See that? Because they're in need of that leadership too, because the retirement piece is going to be huge. They're trying to figure out, where am I going to stay? I worked hard to get my home, to own a home. And I've set aside my monies and this, that, and the other to do that. And all of a sudden, if I'm taxed out of my home, we're looking at gentrification. This is not a minority firm, it's a term. It's everybody's term. And these are critical times now, because the baby boomers were a big flock of folks. You're part of that, but that's a big flock. Now they're retiring, and now here we are having problems with the whole issue with PERS. You've heard Tim and I were talking about this whole issue with PERS and aspect of it. People are not sort of like giving anymore. People are not wanting to work together and knowing what the history of this country was about, working together. Going back to the Revolution, everybody was together. And beforehand, England was basically running the whole show, and then we all worked together, we fought together, and then we got into this next tier, and the next thing we had our own revolution within our own country. It's called the Civil War. And then we thought, well, we did that piece, and then all of a sudden said, well, we'll get together again, and so we went through that process, and boy, I tell you, now we've educated the world, for that matter. That was the other thing, we educated the world, and now we're trying to figure out how we're going to survive. We've been giving, And yet, see, well, now we've got our problem in this country. That's why we need the kind of leadership that you're bringing to the table. And that needs to be conveyed. And I can't do it. I can go so far. Otherwise, I'm just an old man. But I'm a different kind of a guy, so to speak. And then Tim is sort of like right behind me, so to speak. And then yourself. Well, you guys, but basically it's you guys. But I really feel good and comfortable about the fact you relate to the family. That's the key to what this country is all about, the family. And all this other stuff, the racism, it's really not the issue now. It's about survivorship. We're all in the same boat, so to speak. So we need leadership, okay? So now, another thing I was going to ask you about is the recent situation with reference to, and I know it's kind of a national issue that started up over the whole issue about sexism and whatever. It is a problem because in all due respect, we don't respect that's that family. We don't respect women in many ways, and we got the color thing, whatever. But the bottom line is that, you know, it's very, very important that we respect the entity that brings us all here. It takes a male and a female, if you will. I mean, that's why we're here. We wouldn't be here otherwise. But look like that's tearing down. You know, when you look at the kinds of things that we're seeing on film and how we degenerate, if you will, and the female society within our community, that's a tough one. You got me? And naturally, we got again from the millennium side of the aspect of it, in terms of what's portrayed, of how women are portrayed, being misused, and this, that, and the other. And so that's why we're having this problem right now. We got a generation that's sort of, you know, to the point that they're very, very rebellious. Rightfully so. You know, and I've gone through the whole issue of the going to school and this, that, and the other, and we've seen the movies and all this, that, and the other, and how men treat women. But now we're suddenly at this turning point. Hopefully we're going to come out. I'm sharing this with you because we need to understand that. And that we're having this discussion over here. And at some point in time, we have to cut it off and say, okay, fine, and we'll go on. But we got to make sure that we're able to tell with the women part of our society that we understand that now. You got me? And we really understand that and come up with things that so they are satisfied, because they need to come back to the table and say to perpetuate our way of life, and the only way you can do that is through a family.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I mean, you know, consent is a must in any relationship. And I think as three men here that we have to reaffirm that. And in light of, you know, today's and the national, you know, outings of harassers, abusers, accused harassers, accused abusers, and then the real harassers and the real abusers, and the real rapists. We have to stand up against that and say enough is enough. And as men, I think we do need to call out for that. And I think that's very mature of you, Bruce, to ask young people like us to say that on TV. You know, consent is required. It's a must-have in any relationship. And I think that beyond a man and a woman and beyond any type of sexual harassment that's going on today, that's the basis of a civil society. You know, we were Neanderthals at some point, or whatever you believe with our creation. But that's the basis of any successful society, is respect and consent among two individuals. And so I think that's a really elucidating point that you bring up, especially politically, where you know, that's why we broke against the British, because we said, no, you're not, you're forcing us to do certain things. And that's why, you know, man, in a generic term, men or humankind has always broken against dictatorships or kings or trying to be free. So I'm just commend Josh for running and stepping out and you know, putting his voice out there, because, you know, he really believes in success for everybody. So
well, how's the campaign coming along, Josh?
It's going well.
I know it's just started. You know, you got March going. Well, how many do you have any opponents out there that are running?
Well, not currently that I know of. You know, as far as my party goes.
And what ticket are you running under?
Republican.
Republican Party.
That's
okay,
District 40. Where's that? What cities?
Oregon City, Gladstone, Jennings Lodge area.
Okay. So what does the definition of the Republican Party means to you? I mean, you know, you see that, you see this thing that a lot of times the big R is against anything and everything, but from a historical standpoint, it's just the opposite.
Right.
You got me? I mean, that's the history, but we don't teach that history in our classrooms. That's the other problem we have. And recognizing the fact that there's still that 10% among us, if you will, that's called greed. You know, and then we kind of like gotten up to that point. So some of those things that are happening to us right now is good for us. It's almost like, you know, it's like after a seasoning, if you will, of grass seeds and things. You know, they burn the crop and whatever. Then all of a sudden it comes up and you get a whole bunch of new stuff. That's kind of like what we're going through right now.
Definitely.
You know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I can see you feel very comfortable, but you just happen to be a Republican. You're a Republican, but the issues you bring to the table are solid. But a lot of times they will tend to use that against you without listening to what you're saying. So you got to be very strong about and show convincing that you know what you're talking about, and you're sincere about it, and that you will in fact do what you said what you're running on. Okay? And then that'll take care of itself. And then hopefully, and we're going to probably interview, hopefully, maybe, will you be open for a debate between you and the
Most
D?
definitely.
Whoever the
general elections almost here, after the primary.
Most definitely. You got me?
Yeah.
So you don't have anybody running against you right now?
Not currently.
So right now? That's good.
So on the platform, what are your issues, Josh, that's going to help Gladstone, Oregon City? I mean,
that's right.
You kind of touched on that earlier, but you have kind of like the key issue that's going to help that community. If you're in the legislature, regardless of the majority party that's ruling Salem right now, you know, I mean, there could be a conservative movement, and Julie Parrish could be the Speaker of the House in the future era. Well, you know, if that were the case, or if it's the majority party now, the Democratic legislature is, you know, reaffirmed and they get a super majority, or they don't. I mean, are you going to stand up against a corporate sales tax or a personal sales tax, or you know, are you and I actually think it's really interesting. We're just talking about private property ownership. Josh owns his own home in Oregon City. I mean,
really?
He's built his own success, and I think that's just so incredible that, you know, he took what was before him and then now is called to serve because he saw, you know, his community and neighbors hurting and struggling. In Oregon City and Gladstone, you know, those are some unique, you know, districts of you know, opportunities, but also a lot of things that need to be changed. So what in Salem, Josh, would you really be fighting for?
Definitely. Well, first and foremost, you know, there's a lot of negative stereotypes on the Republican Party if you're a Republican, and really what it comes down to me is local government accountability. You, Tim, myself, we all have to balance a budget. We have to be responsible for our costs. And for me, working in small business, I see that every day. And for what I see down in Salem and what's going on, I don't see that being very responsible. For where the money's being spent, where it's going, and the results that we have, you know, afterwards, I think there needs to be more accountability. And I think that's where I fall fiscally, definitely. So I think there just needs to be a bigger focus on where we're spending our money and how efficient the results are afterwards.
Okay, good. Well, you know, in fact, I brought that point up, another point is because here I am, you know, at my age factor aspect of it, and I grew up this way. My father was a Republican back in those days. But when you think about the history of the Republican Party, again, like I said, you know, the Lincoln Republican, you know, that's history. But we never talk about that history. It's not in the classroom. And in many ways, some in the Republican Party actually cut that off. You know what I mean? We got to bring that back to the table, because it's America we're talking about right now. We're looking at the person who's running for office. I mean, in order to run for office, you have to be a part of a party. One way you got to register. Okay, there are three right now. I guess Independent, Republican, Democrat, right?
And there's a few more, but those are the major parties.
Those are the major ones right now. But again, it's important. That's why I'm spending a little bit more time on that. This way, you got to get that across to the voters. Because otherwise they start looking at race and all that other stuff, the mail, and you know, you got to hit, just like what Tim was saying, what are the issues from your constituency?
Right. Well, bottom line, Bruce, taxes. I mean, that's hurting. Like we talked about before, these bigger companies that should be coming here, should be thriving here, they're not. They're staying away, saying, look, I can't be successful in Oregon. And as we continue to talk about these gross receipt tax, the gas tax, things that are gonna, you know, pull more money out of the individual's pocket, I don't see that as being the way that Oregon needs to go. So that's something I'll definitely be standing up for and fighting.
I might add too, since you said those companies, and that's the other thing that the constituency is worried about. You know, the little tax, the person who has to pay those taxes aspect of it. The word now is that you got these big companies going to be getting all the money, and it's not going to dribble down, if you will, to the little guy aspect of it. You got to let them know and also communicate to the private sector. You know, have some ideas in terms of how many jobs they're going to create if, in fact, something like this goes this way. You got my point? That's important. And then that way you can make them accountable because you shared it with the public. and the constituency. You see what I'm saying? Because that's a very, very important piece. Because, hey, I mean, our way of life is that you start at zero, and at the end of the day, hopefully you're going to have a home. You know, a roof over your head, be able to pay your bills, and
it's harder and harder.
It's getting harder and harder and harder because, in all due respect, the millenniums. See, you know,
and the government policies
and the government policies.
You can't build homes anymore.
Right.
You can't develop. The metro's controlling everything. Portlandia and Salem controls everything with one-party rule, which says no growth.
That's right.
I mean, and that's why Josh is a homeowner, and talking about
he knows the value.
Houses in
Yeah,
Oregon
he knows the value of that piece.
Helping people thrive.
That's right. Now, what about that the homelessness situation? Quick, like, what do you think about that a little bit? Let's spend a little bit more time about the homeless. We got a problem.
Record levels in Portland.
That's right.
Record levels in Honolulu.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
In Oregon City. I mean,
it's huge.
If you can't pay your rent, then I mean, down by the river used to be the joke, and that's a sad reality. I mean, there is a river in Oregon City. It divides Westland and Oregon City. You know, prosperity on one side and working class on the other. And it's sad. It's sad to be in Oregon these days, where it's hard to pay your rent, and it's hard if you can't find an opportunity to find a job.
And you got to have a job.
And then you got to have a job. Minimum wage is increasing, that's the whole debate.
That's another deal for the small businesses. That's going to kill small business, the little mom and pop shop.
And all the jobs that I had starting growing up, minimum wage. If I couldn't scoop ice cream at Cold Stone or work at that theater, I mean, they wouldn't have given me hours at $20 an hour. And so, but it comes from that progressive mentality of helping people. But you can't just jack up minimum wage and then pretend that you're going to all of a sudden create jobs. We have to have a real base, a real economy, real infrastructure, ability for, like you said, companies to support and grow, and then smart intellectual workers because they're educated from our school system.
Exactly.
Well, with the thriving economy that we have in Oregon, do we have the kids that are going to come into the system ready to support these jobs that we're trying to open up and do? And I think right now that's a big focus. Are these kids prepared to take on the next step, the next kind of shift in Oregon?
Well, one of the things I might throw out on that deal, beforehand we just had grade 1 through 12, right? You got me?
Yeah.
Then we came in with this idea of a community college piece. I think it's time, if you will, to integrate that, if you will. It might be 1 through 12, but you'll have your degree when you get out.
Well, Representative Parrish actually made that, I think, a reality in the last education reform that she got passed. And so today, I think it was you can get free community college in your 2 years of high school.
But it should be included across the board.
You're right.
I mean, so when a person graduates, and then work that with the businesses, if you will, to make sure that the businesses and the corporations that we have in our state are also using that facility, if you will, to i.e. to give them the curriculum necessary so that when they do graduate, they are competent enough and they're competitive enough to be able to compete worldwide.
And kind of touching on another point,
sure.
I mentioned earlier my Lussier ancestry is French Canadian via Quebec, New Hampshire, and my dad's German mom, and then my mom's Swedish mom, and my mom's Cherokee dad. And I didn't choose my birth, being Caucasian, mostly, but Josh and I were talking, and it just dumbfounded me that he's a homeowner in Oregon City. In 100-something years ago, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to be a homeowner, much less serve in the Oregon legislature. And that to me is just so stunning and so important. He's not a token black Republican. He's Josh Hill, a man with a story and a man that's fighting for a better Oregon City and Gladstone, and an American and an Oregonian first.
An Oregonian,
and that brings people together, white, black, green, whatever. And I think that is just so powerful to say a young person stepping up, a homeowner in Oregon City, a guy that got lucky enough to succeed in his education and come home and to say, I'm going to go down to the legislature and fight for hardworking people in Gladstone, Oregon City. And that's why I'm proud to sit here with this guy.
That's awesome. Give us some good lasting comments.
Well,
how do we get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with you?
Well,
you got a website?
Yeah. Well, you can actually reach me at joshhillfororegon.com.
Okay.
So if you'd like to help the team, support kind of what we're doing, the direction we're going, you could donate there. You can find me on Facebook. Any major social media, I'll be there. Okay. And then that carries a phone number anyway, right? Right.
You can call and leave your number aspect of it. You look anybody. What about volunteers? Would you welcome them to come on?
Oh,
do the door-to-door stuff, knocking for you?
Definitely. Any concerned citizen.
Any concerned citizen
that wants some change, wants some things done.
What's the boundary? What's the boundary of your district?
It's a very diverse district. It's hard to describe.
Just give some of the main areas, kind of like freeway. You got a
205. So heading up 205, you got Gladstone here. You got Oregon City on the other side. It pushes a little bit out, like I said, towards Jennings Lodge and I think it's Oak Grove.
So Gladstone, and then all the way top of the hill, Oregon City. Oh, wait, how's that work?
Ah, interesting. Okay, cool. I like that's good. That's
House
good.
District 40.
Yep, House District 40.
What about the makeup of the district as far as seniors? You got a lot of seniors up in that area and kids. What's the deal?
There's a very, very diverse group of individuals.
Very diverse.
House District 40. You've got a good sector of older individuals. You've got a lot of hardworking blue collar, individuals as well. But you also have this newer millennials, if you will, moving into the district. So the Portlandia, the boutique shops, coffee shops, that stuff, you're seeing a lot of that trickle in. So.
And manufacturers. You got Benchmade at top of the hill. And
that's right.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so it's growing.
And like you said, things are changing. I mean, you got folks from back east that are coming here. Millennium, and that's what this country's all about.
They're fleeing high-tax states.
They're getting out. They're getting out of that deal and coming over here. They have to worry about that heavy snow stuff and all that weather.
And no state sales tax.
In California, that's right. And so now I'm that's where my head's at. I want us to have a sanctuary city. I'm almost like Tom McCall. He'd say, in so many words, visit but don't stay.
That's right. Enjoy it.
And that's why it's not trying to be negative about the sanctuary city as it relates to trying to be racist, something to Hispanics or this, that, and that.
There's a cost.
It is an issue. We can't afford it anymore.
Yep.
A lot of the jobs, this business about, they're doing jobs that Americans don't want to do. No, ain't going to fly anymore. No,
it's about fairness.
That's right. Those jobs are jobs.
Opportunity.
No, they're jobs. I mean, we've exhausted, if you will, the unemployment piece. And it's sort of like an insult when a person feels that I got to get food stamp, you got to stand in line, this, that, and the other. We're very proud people across the board. And if you're going through those kinds of things, you'll blame other folks. That's why we get in that whole issue with this other deal about hate and racism. You know what I mean? Because hey, you got to blame somebody for it, right? To a certain degree. Well, look, this has been great. I got about another minute, if you will. Tim, any lasting word?
Well, plug timlussier.com and timlussier.org. I got Twitter and Facebook and all that. And my contact.
One more time, Tim Lussier, right?
Lussier. Yes,
Lussier.
That's right.
Okay, and you can do your piece on that end of it. And we're gonna probably do some more things. You're gonna probably get me some more candidates.
I'll bring
to come out here and then on the issues and give us an update on what's going on out here in our state.
Going on.
A lot of ballot measures. Let's see if we can hook on those folks.
Stop those toll roads.
Okay, that's another big. That's a biggie.
Yeah, we're gonna stop it.
That's a biggie.
It's not gonna happen.
That's a biggie. But all we need to do is educate our viewing public.
That's right. So they vote. Get out and vote.
That's why I can get out there and vote, and the impact it is going to have on them. So once you learn that a little bit more, we'll have you to come on again and talk a little bit more about this whole piece.
All right.
Okay, about tolls. So anything that you see out there that's going to affect your constituency out there, that's important. And we'll give you the opportunity to tell as one would say, tell your opponent, hey, look here, why don't you go down there and I'll debate you. I think I can get you on with this guy named Broussard over here at the Oregon Voters Digest.
That's right. We'll bring the governor's candidates. Maybe after the election we'll have a unity breakfast here.
Yeah, for sure. And let them remind them that, I'm the employer. They're an employee anyway.
That's right.
I mean, okay, sounds good. Well, guys, this has just been great. This has been just fantastic, and wish you all the luck in the world. And thanks for serving. We're gonna say thanks for serving.
Thanks to both of you.
Yeah, for you basically coming out here and wanting to do something for your community.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Good night. All right, guys. See you next week. Have a good one. Hey folks, thanks for watching. But now I need to ask you a favor. Tell me what you think of the show. Because this show is for you, the viewers. I'm just here to help bring the discussion to the table, if you will. Is there a topic you want to hear more about? Get on that social media and send me a message. On YouTube, write a comment below the video. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, or a thumbs down if you didn't. And click subscribe and stay in touch with future discussions. You can also post a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com//Oregon Voter Digest. I love you folks, and I'll see you next week. Take care.